The Harry Potter franchise was formed over 7 books and 8 movies, all of which were massive commercial successes. The Wizarding World, as it was later dubbed, became a massive cultural milestone throughout the 2000s and early 2010s. There were countless parodies, lots of rip-offs, and even theme park lands dedicated to it. But in 2011, with the release of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, the franchise seemed to reach its end. Hey everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Fantastic Beasts and where to find them. But before that, put your hands together, then apart, then together again, and repeat that cycle for my special guest, Jordan Green.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here, thanks.
You're welcome. Fantastic Beasts is a part of a franchise I really care about, and so I thought getting someone else in to help out with the review was a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think Harry Potter is pretty shit, but happy to help.
I'm gonna ignore you said that.
Warner Bros., however, decided they need to keep making money, so on the 12th of September 2013, Warner Bros. Announced that J.K. Rowling was writing a script based on her book Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and the adventures of its fictional author, Newt Scamander, set 70 years before the adventures of Harry Potter.
The film would mark her screenwriting debut, though she would later return to write the franchise's second and third entries, a trend which will likely continue with any more sequels despite the controversy surrounding her. According to Rowling, after Warner Bros. Suggested an adaptation, she wrote a rough draft of the script in just 12 days. And without spoiling the review portion of this video, you can really feel that. Director David Yates returned to helm the project after previously directing 4 Harry Potter movies, from Order of the Phoenix through to the Deathly Hallows Part 2. It is the 9th overall in the Wizarding World franchise, serving as a spin-off and prequel to the Harry Potter film series, inspired by the 2001 guidebook of the same name by Rowling, which was originally written to raise money for the BBC-affiliated charity Comic Relief. Over 80% of the cover price of the book goes directly to poor children around the world. According to Comic Relief, sales from this book and its companion, Quidditch Through the Ages, still waiting on a Quidditch film by the way, had raised over £17 million by July 2009, so God knows how much more it's raised for a good cause since then. As much as I typically don't approve of J.K. Rowling, that is at least one good thing that she's done. Newspapers provide the audience with some background info on the dark wizard Grindelwald. Our protagonist, Newt Scamander, an oddball who feels more at home with animals than his fellow wizards, arrives fresh off the boat in New York City. His suitcase has trouble staying closed, and, as we find out later just outside a bank, it's because hiding inside is a magical, gold-loving creature named Niffler. Somewhere else across the city, Colin Farrell's Percival Graves, a high-ranking American Auror, Auras are basically magic police, visits a recently destroyed building, and the invisible creature which turned the home into ruins destroys the street as it flees the scene. Back at the bank, Newt pursues the escaped Niffler inside, where he meets Jacob Kowalski, a factory worker who's there looking for a loan so he can establish his own bakery and follow his dreams. He's denied the loan, but quickly finds himself party to Newt breaking into the vault, where Niffler is currently stuffing his pockets with gold. Newt teleports them both out of there, but while trying to erase the muggle's memory, gets his ass whooped with his own suitcase. Lol, get wrecked. Enter Porpentina Esther Goldstein, or Tina for short, an ambitious young Auror who we first met earlier as she ate this awful looking hot dog. Tina is played by the great Katherine Waterston, who you may know from the highly underrated Alien Covenant, as well as a bunch of other good movies like mid-90s, Inherent Vice, and she's also meant to star in the upcoming Damien Chazelle film Babylon, which is super exciting. She brings Newt into New York's magical hub, Makusa, but upon trying to prove that he was harboring dangerous magical creatures, an act which is illegal here in the States unlike his hometown of London, she finds the case filled with baked goods, meaning that Mr. Kowalski had taken the wrong case earlier. He opens it, unleashing a few magical beasts loose upon the city. A short time later, Newt and Tina arrive at Jacob's apartment building, repair the damage, recapture one of his animals, and decide to take the Muggle, or No-Maj as they're called in the American wizarding community, somewhere safe. Elsewhere, we're introduced properly to the Barebone family, They're a pretty uninteresting and basic group of characters who not only believe in but despise magic and all those who use it. Ezra Miller's Credence is the only one of any real import, but we'll talk more about him later. Back at Tina's apartment, we meet her younger sister, Queenie, a fellow wizard who has the unique ability to read minds. She's very bubbly and spends most of the following evening flirting with Jacob, the first nomad she's ever talked to, though Tina seems to disapprove considering it's illegal in America for wizards and muggles to have any sort of relationship with each other, in a parallel to the real-life law-based divides between people of different skin colours at the time, though the fact that the majority of the cast here, both wizard and muggle alike, are portrayed by white actors does hamper the metaphor a bit. I do like what they're trying to do here. Once the girls have gone to bed, Newt quickly leaps inside of his suitcase. Clearly, he managed to fix his chameleon circuit since the TARDIS is looking a lot bigger on the inside, housing a whole host of CGI creatures that, for the most part, still hold up pretty well. The VFX for the film were handled by a whole slew of companies, and for posterity's sake, they are CineSite, DNEG, Framestore, Image Engine, Moving Picture Company, Milk VFX, and Rodeo FX. I tried to memorize that. There's a lot. I'm sorry. I know nothing about these companies or any of the history behind them. In fact, the only FX studio I really know anything about is ILM. But through the magic of Wikipedia, I learned that Milk VFX, awesome name by the way, did a ton of work on Doctor Who and its spin-off Class. So I guess my TARDIS joke actually was relevant. The effects work throughout the film is all very well done. While I do have issues with how they are sometimes utilised, this is no fault of the companies themselves and all the hard-working animators from them, but instead stems from issues with the writing and directing from Rowling and Yates respectively. Among these creatures is a trapped Obscurus, effectively a dark magical parasite which feeds off its human host, eventually killing them. It attaches itself to children since they have no knowledge on how to control their magical power, and typically the child won't make it past 10 or 11. Outside the suitcase is a pretty fun sequence where they attempt to catch Niffler as he robs a jewelry store of all its shiny things, though not everything goes to plan.
Name it that way, officer.
Later, at the Central Park Zoo, aka the zoo from Madagascar, Madagascar Escape to Africa, Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted, and the TV series The Penguins of Madagascar, not to be confused with the movie Penguins of Madagascar, in which the zoo does not make an appearance. Newt gets weird in an attempt to recapture this big rhino elephant thing. The action here is really strangely put together though. Characters jump all over the place and little bits seem cut out, making the action occasionally hard to track. But it's a fun enough scene and I could definitely see kids finding Newt's antics funny. This guy called Henry Shaw Jr., whose dad is played by Jon Voight, is currently running for mayor. But at a rally, he's killed by the unseen Obscurus, the same creature which destroyed that building from the beginning of the film. Graves has been working with Credence behind the scenes in an effort to track down and control the Obscurus, believing it to be someone close to the Barebone family and their cause. Tina manages to stumble into a hearing between a lot of powerful wizards about the recent murder, including Gemma Chan in a minor role.
You know which of your creatures was responsible?
Just shortly before she blew up for her parts in Crazy Rich Asians and of course later, The Eternals. Tina, Newt, and Jacob are arrested by Graves, and in case it wasn't already obvious that he's the main villain of the film, he sentences the two wizards to death for false charges. Since I guess this agency has no kind of real justice system, they are just sent straight to the execution chamber where, instead of, using the killing spell so they die quickly and painlessly, they're melted alive by some weird molten metal. This film is aggravatingly stupid sometimes, because, to be clear, the film really frames MACUSA and the organization as a whole as the good guys. It's just that Graves is the real villain, which means that this kind of execution and the fact that there's no, vetting to make sure, these people should be executed, is fine and is represented as, a normal part of the organization. It's just strange, and it's another place where the film feels underdeveloped. With the assistance of Queenie, they manage to escape the building and head to a speakeasy. Remember, this is set in the 1920s, so Prohibition was still under effect, and it's here our quartet gets the chance to bond a little bit more.
The group makes a deal with this CG animated goblin called Narlac, voiced by Ron Perlman, a highly overrated actor. But unsurprisingly, he immediately betrays our protagonists and gets a well-deserved smack from Kowalski, acting like he's Will Smith at the Oscars. Honestly, what else would you expect from a goblin?
Alright, Jordan, that's enough. First, you come in here and you slander Harry Potter. Then, you insult goblins. And everyone knows that in the wizarding world, goblins represent Jewish people. I mean, it's because J.K. Rowling's a piece of shit, but worst of all, you steal my Will Smith joke, and that I cannot excuse.
Well, I guess taking your joke was a bit of a slap in the face.
Get the fuck off my set. The group escapes the trap, and around the same time, the abusive matriarch of the Barebones goes to belt Credence's young sister for a perceived slight, only to be suddenly killed by the Obscurus. Another fun sequence in which they capture a fantastic beast is next. I wonder where it came from. And inside the suitcase zoo thing, we get some more world building.
I think you'll find that the best wizarding school in the world is Hogwarts.
We also see a picture of Newt's old flame from the past. Wait, Catwoman's in this. We find out that Credence has been the Obscurus this whole time. Wow! What a surprise! That was sarcasm. And so, the final showdown begins.
It's the second Salem boy, he's the Obscurial.
But wait, I thought you established earlier that no one can live longer than around 10 years old if they have an Obscurus feeding off them, but Ezra Miller is not only an abusive dick, but he is also way older than 10.
His power must be so strong he's somehow managed to survive.
That's fucking stupid. They chase Calamity Ganon into the subway, but instead of a delicious, fresh sandwich sub, he finds a long-winded exposition dump as they try to calm down the boy so, he doesn't harass another woman in a karaoke bar. But then the MACUSA people show up and kill him anyway, so who cares? Graves is revealed to be Johnny Depp in an absolutely terrible look. Also, what a downgrade from Colin Farrell to Johnny Depp. But don't worry, I'm sure that Depp will be back in all the future sequels to reprise his role as Grindelwald. I mean, it would be absolutely ridiculous if they had that character played by a different actor in each film. I mean, that would just be stupid. Unlike Gandalf, Newt isn't afraid to ask the giant eagles for help, so he basically makes it rain forgetting water that also repairs everything. And with that, the Deus Ex Machina reaches an end as Jacob steps out into the rain. But not before him and Queenie share a first and seemingly final kiss. Newt and Tina share a tearful goodbye at the ship destined for London.
I'll look out for it. Fantastic beasts and where to find them.
The film closes with a view into Jacob's new bakery, with pastries inspired by his forgotten adventure. But with the reappearance of Queenie, it seems his memory returns as he cracks a smile.
Stupid Craig. All I wanted to do was hang out with my friends. Maybe become rich and famous along the way, marry a Hollywood hottie, direct for the Muppets. Achievable dreams.
Eddie Redmayne, Katherine Waterston, Dan Fogler, and Alison Sudol all do a solid job as our main quartet. Eddie is able to bring out Scamander's eccentricities that have so far kept him distant from the rest of the wizarding populace in a way that still feels believable in this world. Waterston does a great job as a disgraced Auror, desperately trying to do some good and reclaim her position. Fogler is a great source of comedy and knows exactly how to make the often weak script feel strong. Sudol is unfortunately not given a lot to work with, and at the end of the day, Queenie feels like a pretty weak character in this first entry, but, maybe that'll change as the series goes on. Ultimately though, that is where the film fails most. Its script. J.K. Rowling is a good writer. The Harry Potter books are great, but this is her first screenplay, and unfortunately, it seems those skills don't transfer as cleanly as you might think. There's some really interesting ideas in there. The Obscurus, the setting of 1920s New York. Characters like Newt and Tina are well developed, and having a Muggle as a main character is a great way to introduce that world to the audience without it feeling exposition heavy. And the same goes for Newt being a stranger in the country. But there's just far too much going on, and very little of it has enough depth to be interesting. Plot lines like the newspaper family and the mayor ultimately go nowhere and feel like a waste of time. The same goes with the very obvious mystery of who is the Obscurus, when not a single person didn't think it was Credence from the offset. The VFX, as I talked about earlier, holds up pretty well, though I do stand by that some practical animal effects would have helped to make the connection between Newt and his creatures feel more real. I mean, that's part of the reason why the effects in the original Jurassic Park still hold up so well, and even the recent Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom does a great job blending these two techniques, but here, everything is digital. David Yates is solid in the director's chair. I mean, this is his 5th entry in the wizarding world, and, he clearly knows what he's doing and how to get the best out of his actors. The film did manage to stifle a laugh from me every once in a while. Well, I mean, I watched the film alone, so it made me, laugh out of my nose, Other people do that, right? That's not just me. Most of the comedy here is aimed towards kids, and while I don't necessarily have an issue with that, I mean, my 2 favourite Harry Potter films are the Chris Columbus ones, which are very much aimed at that age group. It is therefore less entertaining for parents as it is for kids, which is something the later Potter films managed to avoid. At the end of the day, though, the film's greatest flaw is that, for a film based around magic, there's very little spark that shines through. The film reeks of money. There's no denying that this is a product forced together by a studio purely for profit. There's no real love going into this, and you can feel that throughout the whole experience. It's difficult to describe when a film feels magical, but those first 2 Harry Potter films certainly are filled with magic, for myself at least. It's the sense of discovery, of something brand new and exciting. It's the likable characters given true life by their performers. It's the feeling that behind the scenes everyone involved was excited to be creating the story we as an audience are experiencing. It's the feeling of love that the cast and crew put into the production, and it's something that is nowhere to be found here. And that may not be a very technical reason as to why I don't love the film, but it is an honest one. Fantastic Beasts does manage to be a good time. A few entertaining set pieces scatter the story, and ultimately it is these moments with the titular beast that are the most fun parts. The rest of the story, overfilled with underdeveloped characters, is dull both in excitement and visuals. I mean, for a film centered around colourful magical creatures, most of the movie is full of greys and browns. Newt's coat being one of the few bright exceptions. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them released in 2016 to genuinely positive reviews from critics, grossing more than $814 million worldwide, safely making it a commercial success. But more importantly than how much the film directly made, it kept Harry Potter and the rest of the wizarding world in the mind of the public, and that was, to them, worth more than any box office.
Hello? Who's there?
Thank you all so much for watching. Next week I'm going to be taking a look at Robert Eggers' first feature, The Witch, starring Anya Taylor-Joy, just in time for the release of The Northman in cinemas. If you enjoyed, I'd massively appreciate if you could hit that like button down below. It really helps out. And of course, subscribe so you never miss a video if that's your jam. But until next time, guys, I hope you have a beautiful day and an even brighter tomorrow. See ya.